Let's start. I'm Ganesh from Safe. First of all, congratulations on your victory. It was a great win. First win of the split 2. How are you feeling about it?
Pretty good, I would say overall. Just really nice to get back to playing matches. Practice every day has been kind of boring, so I'm
Yeah.
glad that we're able to step back onto the stage.
Yep. You faced the NRG and they brought back Finesse and Som. What do you think about the team?
I definitely think role-wise for NRG, it makes more sense, and I think that they have the structure that they lacked previously. I do think though they didn't have much time to prepare because of the change last minute, whereas other teams have been kind of the same team for
Yeah.
throughout the entire year. So being changing your color like that midway through the season, I think can be quite hard, especially when there's just so much to relearn and to like get used to, especially for a new team and to get used to calling styles. So I do see it from their end where it was pretty difficult for them to prepare. So I don't think this energy that we faced today was 100% like at their best for peak,
Yep.
but they're still a solid team nonetheless.
Yep. Talking about the game, you started on Lotus, and I mean, you guys changed the comp. You switched to Deadlock and Cypher. Was there a reason to switch comps?
We've been experimenting with different comps just because of the time that we had off in Shanghai, and we've noticed a recent trend with a lot of teams running double sentinel. So
Mm,
we definitely gave it a try on certain maps, and with Lotus, I think it just clicks.
yeah. Uh, you started the game started really well. You guys had a good lead despite the back and forths initially, and then but Energy did show some signs of life at the later of the game that they were attacking. Were you guys worried at all on the map? For the second half of Lotus?
I'm sure that, or on Lotus.
Yeah, Lotus on Lotus.
Oh, no, we weren't really too worried on Lotus. We
Yeah,
definitely felt like we were able just to play our game and we
yeah,
were able to um, just focus on us. And I think if we just played to our normal standard, that we would beat them in the end.
yeah. Yeah, on Sunset, obviously we started the bang. Zekin was on there. I mean, Zekin was on fire today, but second map you were all shooting. You guys had a great start. First thing I would want to ask is why did you switch to Breach from KO? Was it the same reason? I mean, what does Breach add to the composition that lacked with KO?
Yeah, so definitely just a lot of experimenting. It was something that we were able to do since
Yeah,
we had the luxury of time on our side,
yeah,
not attending Shanghai. So
yeah,
we were experimenting a bit, and we are able to flexibly switch between certain compositions depending on our opponents. We do think at the moment like Breach
yeah,
provides like certain util. Like Breach will be better for main fights compared to like a KO.
yeah,
Breach is better for like post plants and setting up people like fast plays. I think really thrives with Breach, and also just the ult is insane for that map.
yeah,
But it's definitely something that we can switch off of anytime.
yeah,
Just because I think it's really nice to be a team that is not readable as much and a team that can flexibly pick their comps. And I think that
yeah,
we're kind of like being able to adapt towards that style.
yeah. On the second half of Sunset, you obviously wait. They came back strong. What do you think was going on? What helped them to, sort of come back and force overtime?
Yeah, I think there was a few unfortunate rounds from us where they like hit some really nice shots, or I do think sometimes they did get a little bit lucky. There was like two certain post plant rounds on B.
Yeah,
I feel like we should have won, but then we messed up or we got accidentally like spammed through a smoke.
yeah,
So it's just like it came down to the little things in the end, and I think that like NRG is a really strong team, especially with FNS's calling. I think
yeah,
their macro is really really good, and I think overall it started getting really close just due to the micro stuff
yeah,
and the small decisions and the shots that they were hitting at the time was really really good. They were the way they were playing together. So I definitely think that was contributing towards their comeback near the end of Sunset. And
yeah,
I won't lie, it was getting kind of worrying just
yeah,
because we have been in a similar spot against EG on
yeah,
behind where we just completely tossed a 2-10 lead,
yeah.
which resulted in us not attending
Qualify.
playoffs, which not
Yeah,
going to Shanghai.
yeah.
So yeah, just we just need to be able to keep composure
Mm,
and focus on our game, not choke, and
yeah,
win and close the map.
yeah. I have a question about the luxury of time you mentioned and missing Shanghai. But let's continue with the current split two question, which would be Crew Esports. You would be facing them next, and they had a pretty insane split one where they dominated everyone. First of all, what do you think of them as a team, especially after the last season where they struggled a lot, and now and since the LCQ they have been looking really strong. What do you think of them?
I won't lie, I haven't watched too many of their matches,
Mm,
so it's hard for me to say exactly and pinpoint. I think
yeah,
the others on my team, such as the coaching staff or IGLs and mid rounders, would have a better idea of how they are as a team. On paper, they look like a really good mechanical team.
yeah,
So as long as they're able to work together really well, I think they can be a really scary team to play against.
yeah. uh, or anything from today's game you would want to ensure you any mistakes that you as a team you as a team committed today that you would want to avoid against the crew against crew.
I think just being able to keep up our momentum, not
Yeah,
give anyone an inch to come back.
yeah,
I think that's kind of been a recent trend with us.
yeah,
So I think we're just trying to revert to our normal selves where we're able to stay composed and close out maps.
yeah,
And I think from there, then we can go back to consistently winning matches.
yep. Talking about the split as the whole qualifying for playoffs as a whole, the record from previous split would carry forward. This means every game you play from now, I mean, even today's game and games after would have a lot more emphasis on them against someone like Crew, which means it would add more pressure towards you and your team against like in contrast to Crew who have a great record and have this sort of cushion to fall back on. I mean, first of all, what do you think about the format? Do you think this shouldn't be the case when it comes to playoffs?
Yeah, I think I have quite strong opinions about the current
Yeah,
way the stage is formatted, especially with the points.
yeah,
In my personal opinion, the points shouldn't have carried over because we're going to be entering a new meta,
yeah,
and with the new duelist changes, especially where teams are able to experiment a lot more, play different
yeah,
compositions. I don't really think it makes sense to carry over the points because when Valorant changes, it becomes a quite different game.
yeah,
Since the game came out and double duelist is meta compared to like now where utility is very dominant,
yeah,
the game is completely different at a
yeah,
pro level. So I think carrying over points from a past split can be quite controversial in my
yeah,
opinion, in my eyes. Especially going into playoffs, the maps are going to be changing
yeah,
to Abyss is going to be subbing
yeah,
in for Split, I believe.
yeah,
So I also think that's super ambitious, just because now teams have to practice 8 maps instead of 7,
mm,
which doesn't really make sense. But Riot Games.
yeah. I mean, the Abyss decision is a bit, I mean, out there, would say. I mean, anyways, do you think people, I mean, teams would go for Abyss? Uh, you know, just because no one might really for it, because preparing 8 maps, in a season where you would have 4 games and a lot less time to prepare, do you think teams would even think about preparing for Abyss? Do you think they have to?
I think teams that feel like they're playoff bound should definitely experiment with Abyss
Yeah,
because whatever team has Abyss figured out faster will have an upper
yeah,
hand in vetoes. Especially
yeah,
if their map pool is already strong.
yeah,
If they're able to add Abyss onto that, it will kind of pressure teams, especially with teams having like certain permabans. I
yeah,
think it can be quite scary.
yeah,
So I do think whoever does prepare for Abyss, and if you do qualify for playoffs, you will have quite a map advantage
yeah,
just in the vetoes.
yep. Uh, Now going back to the uh, earlier question, it is now the rest of the remaining two teams that you would have to face is Cloud9 and G2 Esports. What do you think about them? You have faced G2 Esports become before, and both of the times I mean, they were the reason you didn't qualify somewhere, and also they are a pretty strong team and had made an insane Shanghai run. What do you think about them?
I think for both those teams, I do think on paper we do have the better players,
Yeah,
and tactically, I think we have a more in-depth strat book.
yeah,
So I think if we're able to play up to our standard and our level, that we should be able to beat them.
yeah,
I'm not going to say that we're going to breeze past them because every
yeah,
team in Valorant is a formidable opponent, but
yeah,
I do feel quite confident going into those matches in particular.
yeah. Next week would always also be a super week. I mean, as a competitor who has been playing for a while, what do you think this sort of this sort of format or week where you have to play matches back to back, does that help your case? Does the momentum help you?
I think it depends on the person. For me
Yeah,
personally, I really like just playing matches. I I'm not too big of a fan of scrimming and
yeah,
practicing, but I think the matches are kind of like the fun part of Valorant. So when you're a pro player, you kind of have to tank out the boring stuff to get to the fun stuff. And I do think that the matches being back to back, definitely exciting. I'm
yeah.
just glad I'm able to play matches, just because that's easily the most fun part of playing pro Valorant.
Yep. One last question since I'm running out of time. You did mention that you got sort of a freedom, like you got time on your hands. Do you think I mean, as a competitor, you obviously hate missing out on a good international competition. The teams are, everyone is there. But do you think in the long run, especially for this year where the schedule is quite tight and teams got like 10 or 7 or 10 days break, do you think this break sort of might have also helped you in the sense that you have obviously you could change the comms, you practice a lot more, and you might be less exhausted going to the champs, whereas teams like Genji who barely got any break would might run out of gas towards the end.
Yeah, I definitely think that there's a certain there's a certain amount of times that you play and you're stuck like playing the old meta because you don't really have time to practice the
Yeah,
new stuff. Especially with just playing constantly, traveling constantly, being overseas, I think can contribute to fatigue. And I do think team fatigue can happen. It did happen to both like us after we went to Madrid and we came back.
yeah,
I think the same thing happened to Loud, where they weren't able to play up to their standard,
yeah,
just in due part to also them having visa issues, and so they weren't able to practice right away. So I think it's stuff like that that kind of contributes to teams being less prepared for the next splits.
yeah,
I do wish that if a team did come back from an event, I think it's really nice being able to completely swap the meta,
yeah,
which would kind of result in all the teams being on even playing field, even the teams that stayed behind and were able to
yeah,
practice 10 times more than the team that actually qualified to the event and were
yeah,
playing there. So, blessing in disguise, I think not attending Shanghai, I think we were able to relax a bit. We were able to rest our minds
yeah.
and play together as a team better because of it.
Yep. That's all the time I have. Thank you so much for your time and all the best for the Super Week.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Have a great night.
Okay, you too. Bye bye.